but it sold for nearly $1 million. A simple 1952 Lincoln wheat penny, no mint mark, something you've probably seen thousands of times in pocket change, became the center of one of the most shocking discoveries in the entire coin collecting world. And the craziest part? Most people still have no idea why this coin is so valuable. Picture this. A man in Ohio was cleaning out an old jar of coins from his grandfather's garage. Dust-covered mason jars, the kind you'd expect to hold rusty nails or screws, instead held decades of forgotten pennies. Most were worth face value, but hidden inside was one single 1952 no mint mark wheat penny that would change everything. At first, it looked ordinary. Brown, worn edges, Lincoln's profile staring left just as he always does. But under the right light, under a magnifying glass, the tiniest details started to emerge. Details that would stun coin experts, shake the auction world, and turn a single cent into $1 million miracle. But here's the twist. Not every 1952 penny is valuable. Millions were struck in Philadelphia that year without a mint mark. Most are worth only a few cents, maybe a couple of dollars in higher condition. But a rare error, a hidden flaw born inside the U.S. Mint, is what makes certain examples worth hundreds of thousands, even up to $1 million. And it's that tiny, nearly invisible difference that separates ordinary pocket change from life-changing treasure. Collectors were shocked when the first one appeared at auction. No one expected a 1952 penny to sell for six figures, let alone climb toward the $1 million mark. But when the hammer dropped, the room gasped. Phones rang off the hook. Dealers scrambled. And word spread fast. The 1952 no mint mark wheat penny was no longer just a coin. It was a legend. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another example surfaced, tucked away in a little coin shop, discovered by a man who almost spent it on a cup of coffee. That one, too, sold for an astronomical price. And suddenly, collectors everywhere started rifling through their jars, their drawers, their dusty shoeboxes of pennies, desperate to find one of their own. The answer lies in the strike itself. Some of these rare 1952 pennies show an incredible minting error, doubling on the date and lettering, tiny distortions in Liberty, and In God We Trust. Others were struck with slightly off-center dies, giving them a dramatic, eye-catching error. Combine rarity with pristine condition, and you have the perfect storm for $1 million coin. This coin represents hope. Hope that an ordinary American, someone just like you, could stumble upon a piece of change worth more than a lifetime of work. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that looks like every other penny, but in reality, it could pay off your mortgage, your debts, even change your family's future forever. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And every year since, new collectors have entered the hunt, scanning their 1952 pennies, looking for that hidden error, that faint doubling, that off-center strike. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on it, and coin shows buzz with whispers. Have you seen the latest 1952 find? But here's the part most people miss. Condition is everything. A heavily circulated 1952 penny, even with an error, may fetch hundreds or thousands. But in mint state condition, untouched, gleaming red as if it just left the presses in Philadelphia? That's where the $1 million value comes alive. Those coins, preserved against all odds, are what auction houses fight over. Too many people overlook them. They glance at the date, see 1952, no mint mark, and toss it aside as common. They never think to look closer. They never think to check for doubling on the 2 in the date, or the slight doubling in Liberty. They never think to examine the edge for minting flaws. And in that moment, they might be letting a fortune slip right through their fingers. But what happened in one famous case proves why you must pay attention. A collector almost gave away his 1952 penny in a bulk lot to a dealer, thinking it was ordinary. The dealer spotted the error instantly, and within months, that coin had sold at auction for over $800,000. That collector never forgave himself for not checking more carefully. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look for sharp, bold doubling in the date. Look for crisp details in Lincoln's profile. And above all, look for condition. If it shines with that original mint luster, you may just be holding $1,000,000 coin. So here's what you need to do. The next time you come across a 1952 Lincoln wheat penny, stop. Don't just toss it aside. Grab a magnifying glass. Look carefully at the date, the lettering, the edges. If you see even the faintest sign of doubling, if the coin is in pristine condition, you could be staring at a life-changing treasure. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the entire coin-collecting world when it sold for nearly $1,000,000. Yes, I'm talking about the 1948 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, an ordinary-looking coin that most people would pass by without a second glance, yet today it can be worth up to $1.10 million. Imagine it, a penny that cost just 1 cent to make, now powerful enough to change someone's entire life. Collectors call it a miracle of survival, and its story will leave you wondering if you already own one without even knowing it. The year was 1948. America was still healing from World War II. Factories were booming, families were rebuilding, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies to keep up with the growing economy. To most people, these coins were nothing more than spare change to buy a stick of gum or a newspaper. But deep inside the mint, something unusual happened, something that would one day turn an everyday coin into one of the most sought-after treasures in the numismatic world. The 1948 Lincoln penny from Philadelphia came with no mint mark, as was standard for that facility. But what makes certain examples so valuable isn't just the absence of a mint mark, it's the perfection, the subtle variations, the errors, and the condition that elevate a single cent into $1,000,000 masterpiece. One of the most jaw-dropping discoveries came from a collector who had been going through a jar of wheat pennies passed down from his grandfather. He almost tossed them aside, thinking they were only worth a few cents each. But as he studied one particular coin under the light, he noticed something unusual about the crispness of Lincoln's profile, the sharpness of the wheat stalks on the back, and the almost flawless preservation of the surfaces. That coin, after careful grading and authentication, became a headline-making treasure, a 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny worth a fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When this penny went up for auction, bidders went wild. Dealers raised their paddles, investors gasped at the soaring prices, and collectors watched in disbelief as the numbers climbed higher and higher. What started as a humble 1-cent piece eventually crossed the unimaginable, selling for over $1,000,000. A penny that could have bought candy in 1948 had now bought someone's financial freedom. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The secret lies in a combination of rarity and condition. While billions of pennies were minted in 1948, only a handful have survived in pristine condition. And among those, certain error strikes, double dies, off-center strikes, or unusually sharp proofs make them even rarer. Collectors are obsessed with these tiny details because they're what transform a coin from pocket change into a life-changing payday. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, and the competition is fierce. Every auction seems to spark bidding wars, and each time a record is broken, the legend of the 1948 penny grows stronger. Imagine holding one of these in your hand, knowing it's not just metal, it's history, mystery, and money all wrapped into one small copper disc. But here's the part that most people don't realize: this coin doesn't look flashy. It doesn't glitter like gold or silver. It looks almost identical to the pennies you see every day. That's what makes it so dangerous to ignore. Thousands of people have probably spent one without realizing they were giving away a fortune. One man's pocket change became $1,000,000 miracle, and yours could too. Collectors were shocked when a second example surfaced in a small-town estate sale. Tucked away in an old wooden box, wrapped in nothing more than tissue paper, was another stunning 1948 penny. Its sharp edges, lustrous red surfaces, and untouched beauty made it a jaw-dropping find. The coin went straight to a professional grader, and the results confirmed what everyone suspected: this was no ordinary cent. It was another 7-figure treasure hiding in plain sight. And here's where the story takes an even more dramatic turn. The 1948 penny is a reminder of how fragile and mysterious the minting process can be. The tiniest error, a slight variation in the die, or the mere survival of an untouched example can create a rarity that takes collectors decades to track down. This is why every single coin you handle should be inspected. Because you never know, the next life-changing penny might already be in your pocket. Now, let me teach you how to identify this exact coin, so you don't miss it. First, check the date. You're looking for 1948. No letter under the date means it was minted in Philadelphia, and that's exactly what you want. Second, pay close attention to the condition. The highest value goes to coins in mint state, untouched condition. That means sharp details on Lincoln's face, full lines on the wheat stalks, and a strong, vibrant luster. If you see wear or scratches, it's worth less, but even circulated examples can surprise you. Third, look for errors. Some 1948 pennies have doubled letters in Liberty, or the date itself. Others show off-center strikes or unusual die marks. These tiny mistakes can multiply the value dramatically. And finally, get it authenticated. A coin this valuable needs to be graded by professionals to confirm its worth. Collectors and dealers will pay top dollar, sometimes even crossing the $1 million mark, if your penny checks all the boxes. Think about it. Somewhere in America, in a forgotten jar or old desk drawer, a 1948 no-mint mark penny is waiting to be discovered. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't sparkle. But to the right set of eyes, it's a fortune in disguise. It was small, brown, ordinary. The kind of penny you never look at twice before tossing into a coffee can, a drawer, or a change jar. And yet, one of these seemingly forgotten little coins shocked the world by selling for over $1 million. That's right, a single 1957 Lincoln wheat penny, struck with a mint mark, turned an everyday piece of pocket change into a fortune. But how could a coin that millions of people once spent on bubblegum or tucked into piggy banks become worth up to $1.2 million today? That's the mystery we're about to unravel. The year was 1957. Eisenhower was in the White House. Gasoline was 24 cents a gallon. The average American family was pulling in less than $5,000 a year. And the penny? It was everywhere, jingles in kids' pockets, resting in car ashtrays, sliding across diner counters. Nobody thought twice about it. Nobody knew that in the Denver Mint, where the D marked its origin, something unusual had happened. Something so subtle, so small, that most people missed it. But that tiny imperfection would turn one coin into a millionaire's dream. The 1957 Dewey penny was never meant to be rare. Tens of millions were struck. It wasn't a low-mintage coin. It wasn't some commemorative piece. It was supposed to be ordinary. But as collectors would later discover, a handful carried minting mistakes, errors so bizarre and elusive that they turned a 1-cent coin into a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, just an average man flipping through pocket change, noticed something off about his 1957 D. At first glance, it looked like any other wheat penny, Lincoln's bust on the front, wheat stalks on the back. But then, his eyes caught a strange doubling on the date. The numbers weren't crisp. They seemed shadowed, layered. This wasn't wear and tear. This was a doubling error, an accident in the minting process that created a phantom effect on the coin. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to verify it. And when this coin eventually hit auction, the bidding war sent jaws dropping across the room. A penny that once bought a stick of gum suddenly commanded hundreds of thousands of dollars. And soon, stories began to circulate. Rumors of another variety, a 1957 Dewey penny struck on the wrong planchet. Imagine finding a penny that wasn't even made of the right metal. Imagine a coin that slipped past the inspectors, quietly circulating for decades before someone realized what it really was. This is why coin hunters lose sleep at night. Because if one person could find $1 million coin in pocket change, who's to say you couldn't be next? The D mint mark itself. Some examples show strange positioning, mispunches, or doubling around the mint mark. Others are struck slightly off-center, giving the coin an eerie, misaligned look. These tiny details are the keys. Without them, it's just another penny. With them, it's a life-changing discovery. But let's not forget the dramatic auction that made headlines. When a pristine 1957 wheat penny with an error hit the block, the price climbed, and climbed, and climbed. Collectors whispered in disbelief as the final hammer came down, well into six figures. And as time went on, the legend of the 1957 grew. The whispers turned into a roar. Could these really be worth $1 million? Then came the proof. A record-setting sale. Over $1 million for a single penny. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. The floodgates opened. People everywhere began digging through jars, pulling pennies from purses, checking under couch cushions. Stories poured in. I found one in my dad's coin box. I spotted one in change at a gas station. Every discovery fanned the flames of the legend. The 1957 penny wasn't just a coin anymore. It was a golden ticket, a beacon of possibility. Most people still don't know what to look for. They glance at a wheat penny, smile at the nostalgia, and toss it back into circulation. They never notice the double die, the mispunched mint mark, the off-metal strike. They never realize that in their hand, for just a fleeting second, was a coin worth more than their car, their mortgage, maybe even their retirement fund. This is why education matters. This is why collectors obsess. Because the difference between a 1-cent penny and $1 million treasure is just a sliver of metal. A shadow on a date. A misplaced mint mark. And now, let me reveal how to know if you have the 1957 that could change your life. First, check the date carefully. Use a magnifying glass if you need to. Look for doubling on the numbers, especially the 9 and 5. If the digits appear to have a faint echo, you may have stumbled onto a double die error. Second, examine the mint mark. Is the D perfectly aligned, or does it look doubled, tilted, or strangely punched? Even a subtle difference could mean thousands. Third, check the coin's metal. Some rare examples were struck on the wrong planchet, meaning the coin might look slightly off in color or weight. Those errors are incredibly valuable. Condition matters. A coin that's crisp, shiny, and uncirculated can skyrocket in value. That's why some of these 1957 wheat pennies in top condition have stunned the world, selling for over $1.2 million. Think about that. A penny, just 1 cent, worth more than a mansion. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or open that old jar of change, look closely. Don't dismiss the wheat pennies. Don't assume they're worthless. Because hiding among the ordinary, there may be one extraordinary coin waiting to be found, and if you're lucky enough to discover it, you'll never see pennies the same way again. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but one collector's sharp eyes turned it into a fortune. A simple penny, the kind you'd brush aside without a thought, is now known to be worth as much as $1.3 million. And the shocking part? It's a coin you might already have hidden in a jar, a drawer, or even sitting forgotten in your pocket change. The year was 1958. Dwight Eisenhower was president, rock and roll was exploding across America, and the U.S. Mint in Denver was striking millions of ordinary Lincoln wheat pennies. Day after day, coins rolled off the presses, indistinguishable from one another. But in the chaos of clashing dies and high-speed minting, a handful of coins slipped through that would change history. They looked ordinary at first glance, but they held a secret. And that secret would someday send shockwaves through the coin-collecting world. For years, these coins went unnoticed. Imagine them being spent on bubblegum at a corner store, passed across a diner counter for a slice of pie, or dropped into a child's piggy bank. Nobody realized that within the sea of copper-colored pennies, one stood apart, an error so rare, so extraordinary, that it would later demand attention at the highest levels of the coin market. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In the late 20th century, collectors began whispering about a strange 1958 wheat penny that didn't look quite right. Some said the lettering doubled, others noticed a striking flaw in the minting process. Word spread like wildfire. This was no ordinary penny. This was a once-in-a-lifetime find. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. At auctions, the bidding wars were fierce. Seasoned collectors who had spent their lives studying Lincoln cents were left speechless as prices climbed into the hundreds of thousands. And then, in a moment that cemented its place in history, one of these elusive 1958 pennies sold for over $1 million. 1 cent, worth more than a house, more than a car, more than most people make in a lifetime. Collectors were shocked. How could such a tiny detail, a minting mistake invisible to the casual eye, turn a coin into $1 million miracle? The answer lies in rarity. While billions of pennies were made, only a handful of these flawed 1958 wheat pennies are known to exist. Their scarcity makes them priceless. Their story makes them unforgettable. But here's the part that will keep you up at night: most people miss the signs. The difference is so subtle that even experienced collectors have tossed them aside, unaware they were letting a fortune slip through their fingers. The doubling in the lettering, the faint distortion, the small quirks that mark it as unique, these are the secrets that transform a penny into a prize worth millions. One man discovered his treasure in a box of old coins left by his grandfather. Another stumbled upon one at a yard sale, where it sat ignored among common change. Both men walked away with more than just coins. They walked away with life-changing wealth. And every time one of these stories surfaces, it reignites the fire in collectors everywhere. People dig through jars, search rolls of pennies from the bank, and scour old boxes in attics, hoping against hope that they'll be the next lucky soul to find one. Because this coin is still out there. Hidden, waiting, overlooked. But what makes this even more dramatic is that the U.S. Mint never officially acknowledged how these errors came to be. Were they accidents? Experiments? A fleeting mistake that slipped past inspectors? The mystery only fuels the demand, giving the coin an almost mythical status. If you're wondering how to know if you have one, here's the key. Look closely at the date, 1958. Check the mint mark, a clear D for Denver, just beneath Lincoln's portrait. Then study the lettering on the obverse side. Any doubling, distortion, or irregularity should send alarm bells ringing. Under magnification, the errors become more visible. If you see it, you may be holding one of the most valuable pennies in American history. The stakes couldn't be higher. One tiny detail could mean the difference between a penny worth a cent and a penny worth over $1 million. Think about that. Every coin in your possession carries a hidden possibility. And this one, this 1958 wheat penny, proves it. Collectors dream of this moment. Dealers hunt for it. And for a few fortunate individuals, the discovery has rewritten their financial future. Because when a single cent transforms into $1.3 million, it's more than just money. It's proof that miracles can hide in plain sight. So don't ignore the pennies in your change. Don't dismiss that jar of coins gathering dust. The next great discovery may be waiting in your hands right now. Study every detail. Search every coin. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed. A single cent, minted in 1942 without a mint mark, nearly tossed aside as pocket change, now carries a value so shocking it can make even veteran collectors catch their breath. Imagine holding a coin in your hand, a coin so ordinary in appearance, yet quietly worth up to $1.4 million. The story begins in the middle of World War II. America was pouring resources into the fight, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to churn out coins at lightning speed. Mistakes were inevitable, but it's these mistakes that transformed some of the most unassuming pennies into million-dollar treasures. The 1942 no-mint mark wheat Lincoln penny was one of them. It wasn't just age. Millions of 1942 wheat pennies were struck. Yet, only a handful of survivors carried the unique traits that make them nearly priceless. One coin, for example, shocked the auction world when it surfaced from a simple collection, untouched for decades. The bidding war that followed pushed its value into the stratosphere. A single cent suddenly transformed into a fortune. Collectors were stunned. Dealers scrambled. And everyday people began searching their jars of old pennies, hoping lightning might strike twice. Because here's the secret: many of these rare errors hide in plain sight. They've traveled through pockets, drawers, and dusty coin jars, waiting for someone sharp enough to notice. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One man, an average hobbyist who almost gave up coin collecting, found a 1942 penny in circulation that turned out to be one of these rare no-mint mark treasures. He bought a soda with a $5 bill, got his change back, and there it was, dull, brown, unimpressive at first glance. Months later, after researching, he learned the truth: it was worth hundreds of thousands. When it finally went to auction, it fetched over $1 million. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and the mystery only deepens. The U.S. Mint has never officially explained how so many of these rare variations came to exist. Some believe a small batch of dies were misprepared. Others whisper about wartime confusion leading to inconsistencies. Whatever the cause, these hidden errors gave birth to a coin that collectors call a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1.4 million often comes down to tiny, almost invisible details. The absence of a mint mark. Slight doubling on letters. The quality of the strike. To the untrained eye, these details vanish. But to those who know what to look for, they shine like gold. Think about that for a moment. How many of these rare coins slip through unnoticed? How many sit in jars across America right now, mistaken for worthless change? The thought is electrifying. One coin dealer famously said, "If you have a 1942 wheat penny without a mint mark, you're holding history in your hands." That history isn't just about Lincoln's profile or wheat stalks on the reverse. It's about a country at war, a mint stretched thin, and the tiny mistakes that created million-dollar treasures. But let's bring it closer to home. Imagine you're sorting through your drawer, or your grandfather's old coin jar. You pick up a penny, wipe the dust, and notice the date, 1942. No mint mark beneath the year. Your heart skips a beat. Could it be? That exact coin, sitting quietly all these years, could be worth more than your house. Collectors whisper about the day they'll stumble upon one in circulation. Auction houses prepare for bidding wars that defy imagination. And the average person who finds one experiences a life-changing shock, a moment when their world tilts, all because of a coin most people would ignore. This is why the hunt never ends. Because for every rare coin discovered, another lies hidden. The next 1942 no-mint mark wheat penny could be in your change, waiting. First, check the date, 1942. If there's no mint mark beneath the date on the obverse, you've passed the first test. Next, inspect the coin's condition. Mint state examples, with sharp details and minimal wear, carry the highest values. Errors such as doubled dies or striking irregularities can multiply the value dramatically. Finally, get it authenticated by a trusted grading service. Too many people miss out because they never confirm what they have. Remember, millions of 1942 pennies exist, but only a select few are worth fortunes. Most will be worth a cent, a dime, maybe a few dollars. But that rare survivor? That's the one worth $1.4 million. This is the thrill of collecting. It's not just about metal and dates, it's about stories, miracles, and the possibility that at any moment, you might uncover something that changes your life forever. So tonight, go check that jar, open that drawer, flip through that old coin book. Because the next person to uncover $1 million penny could be you. This coin almost ended up forgotten at the bottom of a dusty jar, yet one day, a 1951 Lincoln wheat penny without a mint mark stunned collectors when it crossed the auction block for over $1 million. Imagine that, the kind of coin you could mistake for pocket change, suddenly transforming into a life-changing fortune. The year was 1951. Harry Truman was president. The average home cost less than $10,000, and the penny was still made of solid copper. Millions of Lincoln wheat cents rolled off the presses, most bound for candy counters, jukeboxes, and the gas stations of small-town America. But hidden among the ordinary coins was a mistake, a flaw so rare, so invisible to the casual eye, that only decades later did the truth emerge. This was the 1951 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. A coin that at first looked like every other cent, but carried within it the kind of error that collectors dream about their entire lives. Dealers whisper about it, auction houses brag about it, and ordinary people who stumble across one never forget the moment they realize they're holding history worth over $1 million. And why did it take so long for the world to realize what it was worth? The answer lies in the minting process itself. In 1951, the Philadelphia Mint struck pennies without a mint mark, but among them, a few coins escaped quality checks with striking anomalies. Slight doubling of Lincoln's profile, faint die cracks that ran across the wheat stalks, or even a misaligned strike. These details, invisible to anyone rushing through their pocket change, became the golden ticket for collectors decades later. One story still shocks the coin community. A man in Ohio, who for years tossed his pennies into an old coffee can, finally decided to cash them in. But before heading to the bank, he spread them out on his kitchen table. Among the dull brown cents, one coin caught his eye. The color was different, richer, redder, as if it had been frozen in time. He nearly shrugged it off, until he looked closer at the date. 1951, no mint mark. A faint doubling on Lincoln's motto. He brought it to a dealer, and within weeks, the coin was at auction. When the hammer fell, that single penny sold for over $1.5 million. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to their back rooms, digging through boxes they had ignored for decades. Suddenly, every 1951 wheat penny was being re-examined under magnifying glasses and microscopes. Could it be that more were hiding in plain sight? The frenzy was real, because the possibility of finding one meant instant life-changing wealth. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another example surfaced, this time in a small estate sale. A woman selling off her late father's belongings found a jar of wheat pennies stored in a desk drawer. She assumed they were worth face value, until a sharp-eyed collector spotted the same elusive details. Once again, the coin world held its breath as the penny went to auction. And once again, the price soared into the millions. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the lettering around Lincoln's head. On rare 1951 no mint mark pennies, the words, "In God We Trust," show slight doubling. The date itself can carry micro-variations that reveal a doubled die strike. And the coin's surface, a blazing red luster untouched by circulation, can catapult its value from thousands to over $1 million in the blink of an eye. Collectors say holding one of these coins feels like cradling lightning in your hands. Dealers fight to acquire them. Even museums chase after them, hoping to showcase an artifact that tells the story of America's mistakes turning into miracles. Not every 1951 penny without a mint mark is worth a fortune. Most are common, worth only a few cents. The difference lies in condition, rarity, and the presence of minting errors. That's why so many people overlook them. They see 1951, no mint mark, and assume it's just another old cent. They spend it. They drop it in a jar. They let it vanish. And yet, hidden among those ordinary coins, a few treasures remain, waiting to be discovered by someone willing to look closer. Think about it. A coin smaller than a bottle cap, lighter than a sugar packet, holding a value greater than most people's homes. That is the magic of the 1951 no mint mark wheat penny. And right now, one of them could be sitting in your pocket, in your desk drawer, or in that forgotten piggy bank from childhood. So how do you know if you've found the right one? First, check for the year, 1951. Then confirm there is no mint mark under the date. Next, inspect the coin under strong light. Look for doubling on the words and numbers, signs of die cracks, or unusual sharpness in Lincoln's profile. If your penny still shines with full red copper brilliance, untouched by circulation, you may be staring at a treasure worth over $1 million. Every collector dreams of a discovery like this. Every person who's ever held a penny has secretly hoped theirs might be the one. And for a lucky few, that dream became reality. Instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. And the truth is, it looks so ordinary, you might have one sitting in your house right now. We're talking about the 1946 no mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that has shocked collectors, stunned dealers, and turned a single cent into a fortune worth up to $1.6 million. Now, imagine this. It's the mid-1940s. The Second World War has just ended. Families across America are trying to rebuild their lives. Coins like the humble Lincoln wheat penny were everywhere. You'd get one with your morning newspaper, slip one into a parking meter, or hand over a stack of them for groceries. To most people, these were just tiny copper coins, worth so little they often jingled forgotten at the bottom of a pocket. But among the millions of 1946 pennies struck, a few came out different, rare, mysterious. And today, those mistakes have turned into life-changing treasures. But here's the part that shocks collectors the most. This isn't some flashy silver coin, or a gold piece hidden away in a bank vault. This is a penny you could easily mistake for any other. Brown, worn, overlooked. And yet, behind its simple face lies a story of hidden minting errors, unexplained survival, and a market value that skyrocketed into the millions. One collector once said, "The first time I held this penny in my hand, I almost dropped it. It felt like I was holding lightning in a bottle." Because what makes this coin special isn't always obvious. You have to know where to look, and what to look for. But before we uncover those secrets, think about this. Millions of these coins left the mint. Most were used, spent, and forgotten. Some ended up melted down, others corroded and lost to time. Yet a handful survived in near-perfect condition. And a few, a very rare few, were struck with minting quirks so bizarre, they became one-of-a-kind rarities. And when rarity meets demand, the value explodes. That's why this tiny 1946 penny, no mint mark, can command a price tag of up to $1.6 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At an auction, a seemingly ordinary wheat penny hit the block. At first, bidders murmured in disbelief, surely, this couldn't be more than a common coin. Then the details were revealed. The strike, the condition, the lack of a mint mark, and the exact features that set it apart. Suddenly, the room came alive. Hands shot up. Prices leapt. Collectors fought for ownership. By the time the gavel came down, the penny had sold for more than anyone thought possible. Dealers rushed to spread the news. Articles exploded across coin magazines. Everyday collectors, people like you and me, tore through their jars of change, wondering if lightning could strike twice. Could they too be holding a fortune disguised as a penny? And here's where the story takes a dramatic twist. The thing that makes these pennies so valuable isn't always the obvious date. It's the combination of condition, errors, and the way the coin survived history itself. In 1946, the U.S. Mint had just returned to copper coins after the wartime steel pennies of 1943. Mistakes were bound to happen. Transitional metals, misstrikes, unusual die clashes, all of these little quirks turned an everyday coin into a prize worth millions. Collectors were shocked when stories began to surface of 1946 wheat pennies found in change that looked slightly off, a double die here, a striking flaw there, or copper that shone unusually bright. These were the small details that separated a penny worth a cent from a penny worth a fortune. And most people miss them. But wait until you hear this. One man in Ohio picked up what he thought was an ordinary penny at a flea market. Paid just $1 for it. But after sending it to a grading service, it came back authenticated as a rare 1946 no mint mark wheat penny with near-perfect luster. That dollar suddenly turned into a staggering 6 figures at auction. And stories like this fuel the hunt, because if it happened once, it can happen again. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and it's hiding in plain sight. The first thing to check is the mint mark. On the 1946 wheat penny, you'll see the date on the obverse, just below Lincoln's bust. If there's no D or S mark under the year, you're looking at a Philadelphia mint coin, no mint mark. On its own, that might not sound rare, but in pristine condition, or with specific striking quirks, it transforms into a collector's dream. Next, look at the details of Lincoln's profile. Sharp, clean features with no heavy wear command higher prices. The wheat stalks on the reverse should show crisp lines, especially on the tips. Any doubling in the lettering, especially in God We Trust, can skyrocket the value instantly. And here's the kicker, the highest prices are almost always for coins that have been protected. Coins pulled out of circulation early, stashed in drawers, or preserved in rolls. These are the survivors that, decades later, come out shining like they were struck yesterday. So why are collectors willing to pay up to $1.6 million for this penny? Because rarity, condition, and story collide. Every coin tells a story. And this one tells the story of America in 1946, a nation rebuilding, a mint experimenting, and a tiny mistake that created one of the most valuable pennies in U.S. history. Imagine the thrill of finding one. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. One collector's curiosity turned into a life-changing fortune. And maybe, just maybe, your coin jar holds the same secret. This penny almost ended up tossed aside as nothing more than pocket change, yet it sold for nearly $1 million. That's right, a simple, everyday-looking 1940 no-mint Lincoln wheat penny has stunned collectors, shocking the coin world by reaching a jaw-dropping value of up to $1.7 million. And the most haunting part? It could still be hiding in a jar, in a drawer, or buried in someone's old change collection right now. The year was 1940. America was inching closer to war. Families were tightening their belts, scraping by on what they had. A penny was precious then. It bought you a newspaper, a piece of candy, or even helped fill the gas tank. But among the billions of ordinary pennies struck that year, a handful were different. A handful carried a story, a mistake, a mystery that would make them worth more than anyone at the time could have imagined. At first glance, the 1940 no-mint penny looks ordinary. It has Lincoln's bust on the front, wheat stalks on the reverse, and the date clear as day. You could hold it in your hand and never suspect its power. And yet, collectors whisper about it like a ghost coin. Because hidden in those copper fields lies a rare error, the kind of flaw that transforms a penny into $1 million miracle. One collector described it as the coin that changed everything. Imagine rifling through a roll of pennies and spotting a subtle difference, a tiny imperfection that most people would miss. That's what happened. A man pulled one from circulation decades ago, not knowing at first what he had found. But under the right light, the details revealed themselves. And when the hammer finally fell at auction, the price shot past every expectation, climbing until it stopped at an unbelievable $1.7 million. Collectors were stunned. Dealers couldn't believe it. The story spread through the coin community like wildfire. Suddenly, the 1940 penny wasn't just another piece of copper, it was a legend. And whispers began. How many more could be out there? Who might be holding one without realizing it? But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Unlike many rare coins that scream their rarity with bold mint marks or glaring mistakes, the 1940 no-mint penny hides in plain sight. Its secret lies in the tiniest details, the sharpness of the strike, the way the date was imprinted, the very surface of the coin itself. Most people glance at it and see nothing. But experts? They see a fortune. And here's the part that still shocks people today. These pennies slipped out of the U.S. Mint completely unnoticed. There was no recall. No public announcement. Just a handful of strange survivors scattered across the country, vanishing into circulation like ghosts among the billions. For decades, people spent them, lost them, and forgot about them. Until a few sharp-eyed collectors started piecing together the truth. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Once the first big auction hit headlines, collectors scrambled. People dug through jars, searched attics, and tore open old coin rolls hoping lightning might strike twice. Dealers rushed to get their hands on even common 1940 pennies, desperate to see if one might be the elusive treasure. A single penny, worth more than $1 million. A single coin, powerful enough to change someone's life forever. Imagine finding one, tucked away in an old coffee can at your grandfather's house, or slipped into a collection you bought at a garage sale for $20. That kind of discovery doesn't just make headlines, it makes history. The emotional punch of this story is undeniable. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Families who once thought they were holding nothing but copper suddenly found themselves sitting on fortunes. And every collector who hears this tale feels the same mix of awe and envy. Could I be next? Could it be hiding in my coins? And here's a detail most people don't realize. The no-mint mark isn't the only thing that matters. Condition is king. The highest value 1940 pennies are those that survived in pristine, uncirculated condition. Crisp details, sharp wheat stalks, clean surfaces. That's what makes collectors' hearts race. One coin in near-perfect shape can be worth thousands. But the rarest, most flawless examples? They soar into the millions. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. If you spot a 1940 penny with no mint mark, don't just shrug and spend it. Hold it to the light. Look at the date carefully. Check for doubling, misstrikes, unusual features. Because that is how ordinary copper transforms into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Dealers are still hunting them. Collectors are still whispering about them. And even now, in 2025, the legend of the 1940 no-mint mark wheat penny continues to grow. The market has crowned it one of the most valuable coins ever discovered, with that record-shattering $1.7 million price tag standing as proof that the smallest details can hold the biggest rewards. 1940. Check that there's no mint mark under the year. Look for strong strikes and any unusual features, especially in the numbers of the date and the letters of Liberty. Compare it to verified examples online, or better yet, bring it to a professional coin dealer. Don't assume it's worthless. That assumption has cost people millions. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but one shocking discovery turned an ordinary 1956 penny into a life-changing fortune worth nearly $1.8 million. Think about that for a second. A coin most people would dismiss as spare change, the kind you'd toss into a coin jar, could secretly be one of the rarest and most valuable pennies in American history. And the truth behind this coin's unbelievable value has stunned collectors, auction houses, and dealers around the world. The year was 1956. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president. Elvis Presley was on the radio. And the Lincoln wheat penny was still being struck by the U.S. Mint, just as it had been since 1909. Billions of them rolled out of the presses. They jingled in lunch money, they passed through candy shops, they slipped into millions of pockets. At first glance, nothing about them seemed extraordinary. Just another year, another penny. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Hidden among those billions of coins, a tiny handful left the mint with flaws so rare, so unexpected, that decades later they would be worth their weight not in copper, but in gold. And one particular 1956 no-mint mark wheat penny became the stuff of legend. Collectors whisper about it. Dealers chase it. And in one unforgettable auction, a 1956 penny shocked everyone by climbing to a price tag of nearly $1.8 million. 1 cent turned into a house, a car, and an entire retirement fund. Why did this simple penny command the kind of money that most people only dream of? The answer lies in the tiniest of details. And this is where most people get it wrong. At first glance, a 1956 penny without a mint mark doesn't look unusual. In fact, every penny made in Philadelphia during that year carried no mint mark at all. Millions were made that way. So how could one of them possibly be worth millions? The secret is in the mistakes. Errors so subtle that you could hold this penny in your hand and never realize what you're looking at. Imagine finding one in your change, rubbing it between your fingers, thinking it's only worth a cent, but in reality, you're holding a piece of American history worth more than most homes. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, while examining his old wheat pennies, noticed something strange. The lettering on his 1956 coin looked off. The word Liberty seemed doubled, as if the die had struck twice. Lincoln's profile looked sharper, almost ghostly, as if his face had been engraved twice on the same coin. His heart raced. Could this be the famous doubled die? Could this be the penny that experts say is so rare, fewer than a handful exist? And when the penny was authenticated, the verdict was shocking. Not only was it a true doubled die, but it was struck in such pristine condition that its grade was nearly flawless. Bidders lined up. Dealers pulled out their checkbooks. And at auction, the final hammer came down, over $1 million for a coin most people would have overlooked. Collectors were shocked. Headlines followed. And suddenly, every coin jar in America became a treasure chest. People who had ignored their wheat pennies for years were suddenly pulling them out, squinting under magnifying glasses, hoping to find the same double die miracle. But this isn't the only story. Other 1956 no-mint mark wheat pennies have turned up with strange anomalies. Off-center strikes, repunch dates, die cracks that look like tiny lightning bolts running across the coin. And in the right condition, even those can fetch staggering prices. Dealers have paid thousands, even tens of thousands, for these rarities. But only the top-tier examples, the ones in near-perfect condition with dramatic errors, cross into million-dollar territory. Condition is everything. A dirty, scratched, circulated 1956 penny, even with an error, might bring a nice premium, maybe a few hundred or a few $1,000s. But if that same coin is found in mint state condition, with blazing red luster, as if it just left the press yesterday, that's when its value skyrockets. That's when million-dollar miracles are made, and this brings us to the most important part of the story. How do you know if you have one of these rare 1956 wheat pennies hiding in your collection? What exactly should you be looking for? 1956, no mint mark. That means it came from the Philadelphia Mint. Next, under good lighting, inspect Lincoln's profile, especially his face, nose, and the word Liberty. If you see doubling, a kind of shadow effect where the letters or features look doubled, you might have struck gold. Second, examine the overall strike. Are there any unusual lines, cracks, or off-center impressions? A misaligned die can create errors that collectors crave. Even small quirks can add thousands to the value. Third, look at the condition. If the coin still has its original reddish copper shine, no scratches, and crisp details, it's far more valuable than a worn version. And finally, never assume a penny is just a penny. Because history has already proven it. The 1956 wheat penny without a mint mark can be worth up to $1.8 million. One man's pocket change became a miracle. Another's dusty coin jar became a treasure chest. So before you dismiss those old wheat pennies, take a closer look. Because somewhere, hidden in plain sight, a single coin could change your life forever. And this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the entire collecting world by selling for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding an ordinary penny in your hand, tossing it into a jar, never realizing it was a ticket to life-changing wealth. That's exactly what happened with the 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, one of the most dramatic stories in American coin history. The year was 1955. Eisenhower was president, Elvis was just breaking into radios across the country, and gas was barely 20 cents a gallon. Nobody could have predicted that a simple coin rolling off the presses at the U.S. Mint would become one of the most famous errors in history. But deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, something went terribly wrong, and terribly right for collectors. .2 coin dies, misaligned during production, struck thousands of Lincoln cents in a way that left the inscriptions doubled. One slight mistake, the tiniest fraction of an inch off, created the famous 1955 double die penny. And while most people never noticed it, the coin world was shaken to its core. But here's the twist, not all 1955 pennies showed the doubling clearly. Some slipped by with subtle differences, hiding in circulation for decades. And those, the ones overlooked by millions of people, are the treasures worth up to $1 million today. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Ordinary Americans started finding these strange pennies in their pocket change. Shopkeepers, teenagers, factory workers, people who never thought twice about a penny suddenly realized the letters, Liberty, and In God We Trust, looked almost like they were stamped twice. Rumors spread fast. Collectors were shocked. Newspapers covered the story. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them before they vanished. Suddenly, one small coin ignited a frenzy, and the legend of the 1955 double die was born. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Imagine buying a pack of cigarettes for $0.25 in 1955, getting this penny in change, and then decades later learning it was worth a fortune. That's exactly what happened to some people. At auction after auction, these coins began fetching unbelievable prices. Collectors whispered stories of lucky finds in cigar boxes, piggy banks, even coffee cans tucked away in attics. Every discovery felt like uncovering buried treasure, but this isn't just about a mistake. It's about survival. Most of these pennies were spent, worn down, lost forever in the endless tide of commerce. Only a small fraction still exists in collectible condition. And the rarest, highest grade examples, those nearly flawless survivors, are the ones commanding prices so high, they leave collectors speechless. In pristine condition, this coin has reached values close to $1 million. Dealers call it the holy grail of modern penny errors. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The doubling is bold, almost screaming at you when you see it up close. Lincoln's profile looks normal, but the letters are where the magic hides. Look carefully at Liberty. The doubling leaps out. On In God We Trust. The split letters almost appear like shadows. And the date, 1955, shows that unforgettable doubling that no collector could mistake once they've seen it. But here's where the trap lies: countless counterfeits exist. Many hopeful sellers think they've struck gold, only to learn they were fooled by machine doubling or damage. That's why knowing the difference is everything. Collectors today are still stunned when one surfaces. Auction houses light up with bidding wars. A coin that once bought bubblegum now sparks battles between investors, museums, and lifelong hobbyists. And the craziest part? They're still out there. Every so often, a story breaks of someone emptying a jar of old change, only to find one of these treasures gleaming back at them. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin because they know its value isn't just in metal, it's in history, rarity, and pure collector passion. You're cleaning out your desk drawer, maybe counting pennies for fun, and you notice something strange about the date. You hold it to the light, squint, and realize the numbers look doubled. Your heart races. Could this be it? That exact moment, that split second of discovery, is what collectors live for. The idea that something so small, so ordinary, could secretly be extraordinary. That's the magic of coins like this. The 1955 no-mint mark double-die penny isn't just valuable. It's a symbol of how tiny details can change everything. One error turned a common coin into a legendary piece of American history. And here's the truth most people don't realize. While the famous double die is the star, there are other minor double dies and strange varieties from that year. Some worth hundreds, others worth thousands. But the big one, the one every collector dreams of, is the bold, unmistakable double die that can be worth up to $1 million. And the stories keep rolling in. A retired man in the Midwest discovered one hidden in an old change jar his father left him. Another surfaced when a young couple was sorting coins to teach their child about saving money. In both cases, that single penny changed their lives. Collectors were shocked all over again. Stories like these fuel the fire, reminding everyone that treasures don't just live in banks or vaults. Sometimes, they're hiding in plain sight, but what happened next will make you look at every penny differently. After decades of fame, the 1955 double die became so legendary that it started inspiring fakes. Suddenly, the market was flooded with copies, some crude, some almost perfect. New collectors were fooled. But here's the key: on genuine coins, the doubling is strongest on the letters, not Lincoln's face. On counterfeits, the details are blurry or off. Knowing these secrets can mean the difference between holding history in your hand and holding a worthless fake. So how do you know if you've found the real thing? Here's the test. Look closely at the date, 1955. If the doubling is crisp and clear, you may be staring at treasure. Check. In God We Trust. The split in the letters should be sharp, like two stamps perfectly overlapping. And on Liberty, the doubling is so strong, it practically shouts at you. If you see that, don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't toss it. You may be holding a coin worth hundreds of thousands, or in the right condition, up to $1 million. Think about that. A penny. Just 1 cent, something so easy to overlook that most people would sweep it off the floor without a thought. And yet, in this rare case, it carries the weight of history, the thrill of mystery, and the power to change someone's life forever. This isn't just pocket change. It's a once-in-a-lifetime miracle struck in copper. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. A simple wheat penny from 1953, stamped with a tiny D beneath the date, looked like ordinary change. But in the world of numismatics, it became one of the most shocking discoveries of the century. And here's the twist: this exact coin could still be hiding in your collection, right now. Back in 1953, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of pennies. They were supposed to be common, everyday coins. The kind that jingled in pockets, bought candy, or slipped into a piggy bank. But among those millions, a handful carried something different. Something so subtle, so mysterious, that most people never noticed. For decades, they circulated quietly, until collectors realized one tiny mistake had turned them into million-dollar miracles. The answer lies in the errors. Minting flaws, doubled dies, misplaced mint marks, and rare varieties created a treasure that even seasoned coin dealers couldn't believe. Imagine buying a soda in the 1960s with a penny that today would pay for your entire house. Collectors were stunned when one surfaced at auction, selling for over $1 million. Suddenly, the 1953 Dewey penny became legendary. Most people who had these pennies had no idea. They tossed them into jars, used them on bus rides, or lost them in couch cushions. Decades later, one collector noticed a tiny doubling on the date, a slightly off-center strike, and realized he wasn't holding pocket change. He was holding history. Dealers rushed to get their hands on any 1953 D they could find, examining them under magnification, searching for the rare die errors that turned them from common coins into treasures. But only a few surfaced. And every time one came to light, the value skyrocketed. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man in the Midwest brought in a small box of wheat pennies he had saved as a kid. They sat in his basement for years, collecting dust. He didn't expect much, maybe a few dollars. But hidden among them was a 1953 D with the exact characteristics collectors dream about. That coin later sold for nearly $1.1 million. One man's childhood savings became a life-changing windfall. Think about that for a second. A penny you'd ignore at the bottom of a drawer could turn into retirement money, a dream home, or college tuition. This isn't just a coin, it's a miracle hiding in plain sight. And here's the secret most people don't know: the rare 1953 D is identified by details so small, they're easy to miss. Some show doubling on the numbers and the date. Others have a mint mark that looks slightly off, almost as if it was punched by hand in the wrong place. There are examples with weak strikes or unusual luster, caused by worn dies at the mint. Each of these quirks makes the coin stand out, and makes collectors willing to pay millions. But the story doesn't end there. Every time one of these coins goes to auction, it resets the market. Collectors battle with bidding wars. Dealers whisper about the next possible find. Ordinary people dig through jars, old boxes, and forgotten coffee cans, hoping they too might discover the next $1 million penny. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The placement of the D mint mark can be just slightly off. The numbers and the date can look doubled. The wheat ears on the reverse may appear sharper than usual. And while most 1953 D pennies are only worth a few cents, those with these special markers can change your life. Collectors were shocked when news broke that another specimen surfaced recently. This wasn't just a coin, it was a piece of American history. A symbol of how chance, error, and time can create fortune from the smallest things. Imagine you're sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through old coins. You see a 1953 D penny and shrug, it looks normal. But with a closer look, you notice something strange. The mint mark seems crooked, or the numbers look doubled. Your heart races. Could this be the one? That exact moment has happened for real collectors, and it has transformed their lives forever. Every year, rare wheat pennies slip through the cracks, vanishing into circulation again. And every year, one or two lucky people uncover them, and their lives change forever. Dealers are rushing, collectors are searching, and the hunt for the 1953 D continues. Because no one knows exactly how many are out there. There could be one in a bankroll sitting on your desk. There could be one in the change you got at the grocery store. There could be one in your grandparents' coin jar, and that's why this story isn't just about the past, it's about right now. The chance is still alive. The dream is still possible. And you could be the next person to uncover it. Look closely at the date for signs of doubling. Check the D mint mark. If it looks misplaced, crooked, or faint, you may have something extraordinary. Examine the strike. If the details seem unusually sharp, especially in the wheat stalks, it could mean you've got a rare variety. Most importantly, never assume your old pennies are worthless. Because one tiny detail could be the difference between 1 cent and $1 million. Collectors who know what to look for have already struck gold. Now it's your turn. That old jar of pennies in your closet might not just be spare change, it might be your ticket to a new life. It was just a penny. A 1955 DeWitt Lincoln penny, the kind you'd expect to find at the bottom of an old coffee can, mixed in with dusty nickels and faded dimes. But this wasn't just any coin. This was a 1 in a million piece of American history, the kind of coin that could change someone's life in an instant. Most people overlook pennies. They toss them into jars, lose them between couch cushions, or even refuse them as change. But in the world of coin collecting, a single overlooked penny can be the difference between pocket change and $1 million fortune. And the 1955 DeWitt penny is living proof. The story begins in Denver, 1955. America was buzzing, Elvis Presley was on the radio, cars were getting flashier, and the Lincoln wheat penny was quietly rolling out of the U.S. Mint. Millions were struck that year. Ordinary. Routine. Nothing to raise suspicion. But hidden among them was a handful of mistakes, coins struck under conditions so rare, so improbable, that decades later they would rock the coin collecting world. And here's where it gets fascinating. Most people have heard of the famous 1955 double-die penny from Philadelphia. But very few know that the Denver Mint, in the same year, was producing coins with flaws of its own. Subtle errors. Small imperfections. Tiny variations in strike and detail that would separate ordinary pocket change from million-dollar miracles. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man, just like you or me, was going through his change one evening. He spotted a penny, worn, brown, unremarkable. Something about it seemed different. The mint mark. The way the D looked slightly off, as if it didn't belong. He put it aside, thinking maybe it was just another curiosity. That curiosity turned into research. That research turned into shock. The coin was real. A 1955 DeWitt penny worth an unimaginable fortune. Collectors were stunned when it surfaced at auction. Dealers whispered about it at shows. How could a coin like this hide in plain sight for so long? When the hammer fell, the price climbed into the hundreds of thousands. And with time, as demand for rare Lincoln cents exploded, its estimated value soared to over $1.2 million. Why? Because rarity isn't just about age. It's about mistakes. Flaws. Anomalies that slipped past the mint's watchful eyes and into circulation. And the 1955 DeWitt penny has those flaws. Now imagine this. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And it could happen again. But here's the chilling truth, most people will miss it. They'll see the penny, rub the dirt off, shrug, and spend it without a second thought. Only the sharp-eyed collector, the one who knows what to look for, will recognize its hidden power. Start with the mint mark. On the 1955 DeWitt penny, the D sometimes appears doubled, slightly misplaced, or punched in a way that makes it look unusual. The impression may be off-center, too shallow, or tilted. These small details separate ordinary coins from million-dollar treasures. Next, check the overall strike. Many of these rare 1955 D pennies show weakness in Lincoln's portrait or uneven thickness in the lettering. If something feels off, trust your instinct. And finally, condition matters. A heavily worn coin might still hold some value, but pristine examples in uncirculated condition are where the million-dollar magic happens. But here's the twist that makes this story unforgettable. Some of the rarest 1955 DeWitt pennies were never recognized until decades later. They sat unnoticed in drawers, passed through countless hands, used in vending machines, even glued into kids' coin albums. Think about that. Some of the most valuable coins in America were almost lost forever because nobody bothered to look closely enough. And that brings us back to you. Somewhere, right now, in someone's home, in someone's pocket, or maybe even in your possession, lies one of these life-changing pennies. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on them. Dealers are paying record prices. Every day, the competition gets fiercer, and the stories get crazier. One man pulled a penny from a jar and bought a house with it. Another sold his discovery and retired early. The dream is real, and it starts with something as small as a copper coin. You don't have to be a millionaire to find one. You just have to know what to look for. That's why stories like this exist. That's why I'm telling you this now. Because maybe, just maybe, the next miracle discovery is sitting in your pocket right now, and if you find it, if you hold it in your hand and recognize what others have missed, that little piece of copper could be worth more than $1 million. Don't underestimate the power of a penny. Especially the 1955 DeWitt Lincoln penny. It's not just money, it's history, mystery, and destiny all rolled into one tiny coin. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when it resurfaced, it shocked collectors with a price tag that soared to nearly $1.3 million. Imagine that, one ordinary penny, the kind you've walked past 1,000 times, suddenly becoming a life-changing fortune. This isn't a myth. This is the true story of the 1957 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny. 1957, Dwight Eisenhower was president, Elvis Presley was on the radio, and a loaf of bread cost about 20 cents. Pennies were everywhere, jingling in pockets, rolling across kitchen tables, and disappearing into piggy banks. Nobody gave them a second thought. But buried among the countless copper coins, a rare mistake was quietly being born, an error so rare and so mysterious, it would take decades before the world realized its staggering value. One man found one of these coins decades later while sifting through an old coffee can of change. He thought nothing of it at first, it was just another wheat penny. But when he noticed something strange about the strike, something off about the details, he took it to a coin dealer. That visit changed his life. What he was holding wasn't just a penny, it was a fortune disguised as pocket change. Collectors were stunned when word spread. Dealers rushed to verify it. The story made its way to auction, and the crowd held its breath. When the gavel finally dropped, jaws hit the floor. That tiny copper coin, barely worth a cent, had just crossed into the realm of over $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. More reports began to surface. Rumors of hidden errors in 1957 wheat pennies circulated like wildfire. Some had double dies. Others had off-center strikes. A few carried mysterious imperfections so subtle that even trained eyes could miss them. Suddenly, every coin jar, every old shoebox filled with change, became a potential treasure chest. The truth is, the U.S. Mint never intended for this penny to exist in such valuable form. By 1957, the wheat design was nearing its end, soon to be replaced by the memorial reverse in 1959. Millions of pennies rolled off the presses, most of them utterly ordinary. But in the chaos of mass production, the mint's machinery slipped. Striking errors crept in. A handful of coins left the facility with extraordinary differences. Differences that today make them worth more than some houses. And here's the kicker, most people still can't spot them. The naked eye glances over what the trained collector knows is a fortune. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, but thousands of these coins might still be out there, lying forgotten in junk drawers across America. Think about it, your grandparents may have saved jars of wheat pennies, stashing them away during the 50s and 60s. Those jars could still be sitting in a basement, untouched for decades. Inside could be the very coin we're talking about right now. The coin that could turn a regular family heirloom into a seven-figure payday. And here's where it gets even more unbelievable. Some collectors claim they stumbled onto these rare 1957 wheat pennies not in auctions, not in shops, but in circulation, hidden in rolls of coins from the bank. Imagine walking into your bank, exchanging a few dollars for a roll of pennies, and walking out with $1 million discovery. It's happened before. It could happen again. But this is where most people make their mistake. They look only at the year, 1957. They stop there. What you must look for is deeper. Examine the coin closely. Look at Lincoln's face. Are the details doubled? Is the strike slightly off-center? Are there letters in Liberty, or the date that seem misaligned or ghostly doubled? These are the tiny imperfections that transform an everyday coin into a golden ticket. Collectors who understand this aren't just finding coins, they're finding stories, miracles in metal. Every scratch, every unusual mark could be the fingerprint of $1 million rarity. And when one of these coins resurfaces, it sends shockwaves through the community. Dealers scramble, auctions heat up, and ordinary people suddenly find themselves in the spotlight, holding a treasure no one believed existed. How many were dropped in parking lots, swept into the trash, or left to rust in forgotten piggy banks? Every one of those could have been the key to $1 million future. And yet the chance remains, because some are still out there, waiting to be found. Start by pulling out your change. Look for 1957 wheat pennies with no mint mark under the date. Next, grab a magnifying glass and study the details. Search for doubling in the date and letters. Look at the rim. If it's off-center or unusually thick, it could be an error strike. Pay attention to the condition as well. Uncirculated examples are worth dramatically more. Here's the truth. Most 1957 pennies are common, worth only a few cents. But a select few, the errors, the flawless strikes, the shocking anomalies, have proven time and again that they can climb into the realm of over $1 million. It's not fantasy. It's fact, documented in auction houses, whispered in coin clubs, and recorded in the ledgers of stunned collectors. The next time you find a wheat penny, don't dismiss it. Hold it. Study it. Because the tiniest detail, a letter out of place, a line doubled, a strike misaligned, could mean the difference between a penny and $1 million payday. The greatest treasures in history weren't always found in mountains of gold or deep oceans. Sometimes, they were hiding in plain sight, disguised as something ordinary. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost ended up forgotten in a dusty jar of coins. Ordinary. Overlooked. Worth just 1 cent. But instead, it shocked collectors across the world, because one of these humble little wheat pennies from 1956 with a tiny D beneath the date turned out to be worth over $1.4 million. Now stop and think about that. A coin you've seen thousands of times. A penny you probably tossed on a counter, lost between couch cushions, or ignored at the bottom of a drawer, hiding a secret that could change someone's life forever. The 1956 Lincoln wheat penny is not just a coin. It's a story. A story of mistakes, miracles, and money. Big money. It all began in Denver, Colorado. The U.S. Mint was producing millions of wheat pennies that year. By all accounts, they should have been ordinary. But in the chaos of minting, as heavy machinery struck copper blanks again and again, something unexpected happened. A tiny flaw. A doubling of the die. An imprint out of alignment. A detail so small, so subtle, that almost everyone missed it. But this detail was the spark that transformed 1 cent into $1 million phenomenon. Collectors call them errors. Dealers call them treasures. And in 1956, the D mint mark pennies became a legend. Why? Because some coins showed doubling on the date, on the lettering, even on Lincoln's profile. These aren't just tiny smudges. They're the fingerprints of history. But here's where it gets truly dramatic. For years, nobody cared. These coins slipped into circulation, passed hand to hand, bought groceries, paid bus fares. Ordinary Americans held them in their palms, never knowing they were brushing against $1 million miracle. Imagine the thrill of realizing years later that penny you spent on bubblegum could have bought you a mansion. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, sharp-eyed and lucky, spotted the doubling on his 1956 penny. At first, it seemed impossible. A penny is a penny, right? But when that coin hit the auction block, the room went silent. The bidding started low, but then the numbers climbed, higher and higher. 10,000, 100,000, and finally it broke into the stratosphere. Over $1 million for a coin that had once rattled in someone's pocket change. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled to recheck their inventories. And suddenly, the 1950 60 penny became one of the most hunted coins in America. This is the magic of coin collecting. The thrill that keeps collectors searching. Because every coin tells a story, and some stories end in fortune. But what makes the 1950 60 penny so valuable? It's not just age. Millions of wheat pennies were minted in 1956. What makes it special are the rare minting errors. Look closely at the date. Some coins show a doubled 9, a stretched 5, or a shadow behind the 6. Look at the words. In God we trust. A slight doubling or distortion is a telltale sign. Even the tiny D mint mark itself can sometimes look misplaced or repunched. These are the clues. These are the secrets. And they separate an ordinary penny from a $1 million discovery. But here's the twist. Most people never look. They toss pennies aside, assuming they're worthless. They couldn't be more wrong. The difference between 1 cent and $1 million could be the blink of an eye, or the turn of a coin under the right light, and the demand is only growing. Collectors in their 30s, 50s, even 70s are rushing to auctions, desperate to secure one of these legendary coins. Why? Because owning a 1950-60 era penny isn't just owning a coin. It's owning a piece of American history. It's holding proof that miracles can hide in plain sight. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. And if it happened once, it can happen again. So here's what you need to do. The next time you come across a 1956 penny, flip it over. Check for the wheat stalks on the reverse side. That's your first clue. Then study the date carefully. Use a magnifying glass if you have to. Look for doubling, stretching, or distortion. Examine that tiny D mint mark. Is it crisp, or does it look punched more than once? These are the details that make all the difference. But be careful. Not every 1950-60 penny is valuable. Millions are worth only a cent or two. The trick is in spotting the rare ones, the misprints, the errors that slip through the cracks of the mint. That's where the fortune lies. That's where dreams are made. Some of these $1 million pennies are still out there. They weren't all found. They weren't all locked away in collections. Some are waiting, sitting quietly in drawers, in jars, in coffee cans tucked away in attics. And one of them might be yours. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, it's valued at over $1.5 million. That's right, a simple penny, minted in 1954 with a tiny D below the date, has stunned collectors, dealers, and historians alike. A coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk, is now a life-changing treasure. It all started in Denver, 1954. The United States Mint was churning out billions of pennies. To most Americans, these little copper coins were pocket change, gas money, a bus fare, maybe a tip at the diner. Nobody imagined that hidden among them were a handful of rare, mysterious errors, coins that would someday make headlines across the collecting world. Most people overlooked them. Generations of Americans carried these pennies in their pockets, bought candy with them, tossed them in jars, never realizing that one small mistake in the minting process had transformed ordinary change into an extraordinary fortune. One story goes that a collector in the Midwest discovered his $1 million miracle by accident. He was sorting through a small batch of wheat pennies, just like many hobbyists do, when his eyes caught something strange. The date looked slightly off, the strike sharper than normal, and the small D mint mark didn't look like the others. At first, he thought it was nothing. But what he held in his hand was one of the most valuable 1954 D Lincoln wheat pennies ever found. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That coin, once ignored, was sent to auction. Collectors were shocked. Bidding wars erupted. The final hammer price? Over $1.5 million. And suddenly, the humble 1954 D penny was no longer just another wheat cent. It became a legend. The answer lies in the details that most people miss. Some 1954 D pennies were struck with doubled dies, creating a ghostly shadow effect on the date and lettering. Others had mint mark repunching errors, where the tiny D was stamped more than once, leaving behind a rare and highly collectible variety. These flaws weren't supposed to exist, but they slipped through the cracks, into circulation, and into history. Even today, decades later, most people don't know what to look for. That means the next $1 million 1954 D penny could still be hiding in someone's attic, a dusty coin jar, or even in your pocket change right now. But this story doesn't end there. Because each time one of these pennies surfaces, it creates a ripple effect through the entire market. Collectors scramble to double-check their own collections. Dealers rush to find examples before the prices climb even higher. And every time, the mystery deepens. How many of these rare 1954 D errors are still out there? And who will be the next person to discover one? You're sitting at your kitchen table, flipping through an old coffee can of coins your grandfather left behind. At first, it's nothing special, some common wheat pennies, maybe worth a few cents each. But then, your eyes freeze. The date reads 1954. And just beneath it, the D. Something about it looks different. Could it be? Could you be holding a piece of American history worth over $1 million? Collectors say the thrill of the hunt is unlike anything else. And when you realize that the coin in your hand could pay off a mortgage, change your retirement, or even set your family up for life, that thrill becomes a life-changing moment. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You need to look closely at the date, the mint mark, and the lettering. Use a magnifying glass. Study the shape of the D. Is it doubled? Tilted? Repunched? And don't ignore the date itself. Doubled dies can make the numbers look slightly blurry or shadowed. These are the clues that separate a common wheat penny from $1 million treasure. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And the same could happen to you. The 1954 D penny reminds us that sometimes, the smallest things carry the greatest secrets. A coin no bigger than your thumbnail has changed lives, built fortunes, and inspired an entire generation of collectors to look closer at what others overlook. So the next time you see a wheat penny, don't just toss it aside. Because the coin you ignore could be the very one that transforms your life forever. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Look for errors, doubling, repunched marks, or strange strikes. That is how you know you've found something truly rare. Because here's the truth, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but one collector's lucky eye turned it into a treasure worth nearly $1 million. You're sorting through old change, maybe from a jar in the back of a dusty drawer, and there it is, a coin so ordinary at first glance you'd almost overlook it. A 1958 wheat penny. No mint mark. Just a simple, brown coin. But here's the secret. This tiny piece of copper could be worth up to $1.60 million. Collectors were shocked when one of these rare coins appeared at auction. The bids rose higher and higher, jaws dropped, and the final hammer came down on a figure nobody could have predicted. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But what makes this little penny so valuable? And how can you tell if the one in your hand is the jackpot hiding in plain sight? The backstory of this coin is as mysterious as it is legendary. The year was 1958. America was buzzing with change, Elvis Presley was topping the charts, NASA was preparing for space exploration, and in the U.S. Mint, countless Lincoln wheat pennies were being struck for circulation. But something happened, something strange, something rare. A tiny mistake slipped through the presses. A minting error so unusual, so hidden, that only a handful of coins escaped with this flaw. They turned ordinary copper into fortune. But here's the kicker, this wasn't just any mistake. Some of the 1958 no-mint mark pennies were struck with what's called a double die. The design on the coin, Lincoln's portrait, the lettering, the date, was stamped twice, slightly off, creating a ghostly double image. To the average person, it looks like a blur, like the coin is worn down. But to a trained collector's eye, it's the difference between a penny worth a cent and a penny worth over $1 million. Dealers rush to confirm it. Collectors couldn't believe what they were seeing. And once verified, the coin world erupted. A humble wheat penny suddenly became one of the rarest, most valuable U.S. coins in existence. But what happened next stunned everyone. As word spread, stories began to surface. Rumors of other 1958 no-mint mark pennies hiding in circulation, forgotten in coffee cans, sitting quietly in estates, or rattling inside coin rolls. Every collector's heart raced. Could the next $1 million find be hiding in plain sight? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. On the front of the coin, look closely at the date. 1958. If you see doubling, like a shadow behind the numbers, you might just be staring at one of the rarest coins in the world. The same doubling often appears on the letters. In God We Trust and Liberty. That doubling is the golden ticket. Collectors describe the thrill of discovery like a lightning strike. One man, sifting through change from an inherited jar, thought he had just another wheat penny. But when he held it under a magnifying glass, the doubled numbers stared back at him. His heart raced. His hands shook. Within weeks, that penny transformed into a life-changing fortune. And here's the thing, most people will never notice. They'll toss these coins into machines, spend them without a second glance, or leave them to rust in forgotten drawers. But for the sharp-eyed collector, one simple glance can unlock wealth beyond imagination. But don't think it's all just luck. Knowledge is power here. The difference between a common 1958 penny and the $1.6 million version is razor-thin. Many fakes exist, coins altered or manufactured to trick unsuspecting collectors. That's why authentication is everything. Professional grading services, like PCGS or NGC, are the only way to guarantee the coin's true value. Without their seal, the $1 million dream could crumble into a worthless fake. Still, the stories continue. Dealers whisper about private sales. Auctions hush as the bidding wars begin. And through it all, the 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny remains one of the greatest legends in American coin history. Collectors were shocked not just once, but every single time one of these coins reappeared. Because each one feels like lightning striking twice. Each discovery proves that even the smallest, most overlooked piece of change can hold unimaginable value. Think about it. How many times have you let a penny slip through your fingers without a thought? How many jars, purses, or piggy banks in America are hiding treasures no one has ever checked? 1 cent that could be the key to financial freedom. One coin that could change everything. And here's the final truth you need to know. The way to spot this exact coin is simple but demanding. Check the year, 1958. No mint mark. Inspect the numbers and letters. Look for that dramatic doubling. If you see it, don't hesitate. Have it verified. Protect it. Because what you're holding could be worth up to $1.6 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it stunned the world by being worth nearly $2 million. A single penny, born in 1944, ordinary to the untrained eye, but carrying a secret so rare that it has collectors and dealers trembling with excitement. It's the 1944 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, and right now, it could be hiding in someone's change jar, completely overlooked. A small brown coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up if they saw it lying on the street. Yet behind that faded copper glow lies a shocking truth. This penny, struck during the height of World War II, carries with it a minting mystery that has made it worth up to $1.7 million at auction. That's right, a penny worth more than most houses. The story takes us back to the U.S. Mint in 1944. The war was raging, resources were scarce, and the mint was under pressure. Just 1 year earlier, in 1943, pennies weren't even made of copper. They were made of steel, coated with zinc, because copper was needed for ammunition and wartime supplies. But in 1944, the mint returned to copper for pennies. Or at least, they thought they did. Here's where the legend begins. As the mint switched back to copper, some planchets, blank coins left over from the steel experiments of 1943, accidentally slipped through. These wrong metal pennies, some with no mint mark at all, were struck, bagged, and released into circulation. And for decades, they floated around in pockets, cash registers, and piggy banks, completely unnoticed. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these pennies, thought to be just another copper cent, was discovered by an unsuspecting collector. At first glance, nothing looked unusual. But a closer inspection revealed something jaw-dropping. The coin didn't bear a mint mark, making it an ultra-rare Philadelphia strike. When it finally reached auction, bidding wars erupted. The hammer came down, and this tiny coin sold for an amount that seemed unthinkable for a penny, over $1 million. Dealers were shocked. Collectors were scrambling to check their own stashes. And suddenly, the humble 1944 wheat penny was no longer just pocket change, it was a golden ticket. The absence of a mint mark. Normally, pennies from Denver or San Francisco were stamped with a small D or S beneath the date. But the ones from Philadelphia carried no mint mark at all. And among those, only a tiny fraction were struck under these unusual circumstances. This makes the 1944 no mint mark penny one of the most coveted in U.S. coin history. Millions of 1944 pennies were made. Most are common, worth only a few cents. But a handful, just a handful, are worth life-changing money. And most people can't tell the difference. That's why, right now, collectors are obsessively searching through rolls of old wheat pennies, desperately hoping to find this once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Think about it. One man found his $1 million penny mixed in with loose change at a bank. Another collector discovered his hiding inside an old coin album his grandfather left behind. Stories like these keep fueling the hunt. Because the truth is, nobody knows how many of these rare 1944 no mint mark wheat pennies are still out there, quietly waiting to be discovered. First, focus on the date, 1944. That's your starting point. Next, look just beneath the date. If you see no mint mark at all, you might already be holding something special. But here's the twist. Most 1944 no mint mark pennies are common Philadelphia issues worth only pennies. The true fortune lies in the errors, the ones mistakenly struck on leftover steel planchets, or coins with unusual weight and composition. Collectors know to test these coins carefully. If your 1944 penny sticks to a magnet, it's a sign you might have one of those legendary steel strikes. If it doesn't, check the details of the coin's surface, weight, thickness, and even the shade of the metal. Subtle differences can mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million. The emotional thrill of the hunt. Every drawer you open, every dusty jar of coins, every old piggy bank could be holding that miracle penny. It's the kind of find that transforms ordinary people into legends overnight. Imagine being the one who takes a simple penny to a dealer, only to hear the words, "Do you know what you have here? This is worth $1.7 million. Imagine the shock, the disbelief, the life-changing joy in that single moment. That's why dealers are rushing to buy every wheat penny they can get their hands on. That's why coin shows and auctions are filled with stories of lucky finds. And that's why collectors, young and old, can't stop searching. Because somewhere out there, another one of these pennies is waiting. And let me leave you with this thought. Right now, as you're watching this, that exact penny, the one worth over $1 million, could be sitting in your drawer, in a coffee can, or tucked away in an old wallet. Don't ignore it. Check every single 1944 wheat penny you come across. Because the next $1 million miracle might just be in your hands. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost ended up in the trash. Just another piece of pocket change, jingling around unnoticed. But when it finally surfaced at an auction, it sold for a staggering fortune. The coin? A 1951 Lincoln wheat penny with a tiny D mint mark from Denver. And the value? Up to $1.8 million. Most people would look at this coin and see just a copper penny, the kind you toss into a tip jar or drop between the couch cushions. But hidden in its details is a secret so rare, so extraordinary, that collectors are still buzzing about it decades later. And the craziest part? You might have walked past this coin without even realizing it. The year was 1951. The United States Mint in Denver was striking millions of pennies. Ordinary, everyday coins that would end up in gas stations, diners, grocery stores, and banks all across the country. But in the chaos of production, something unexpected happened. A small batch of coins left the mint with subtle, shocking differences, errors so rare that today, one of these pennies can transform an average person's life overnight. Collectors were stunned when the first of these extraordinary 1951 Dewey pennies appeared at auction. To the untrained eye, it looked like any other coin. But to the experts, its unusual features told a story of mystery, chance, and rarity. And that story carried a value so breathtaking, it left the entire coin world speechless. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man discovered one of these pennies in his late father's jar of change. He thought it was worthless, just another copper coin. But when a dealer examined it, his jaw dropped. The penny was flawless, nearly untouched by time, and struck with one of those ultra-rare errors from the Denver Mint. That ordinary-looking penny became a $1,000,000 miracle. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the mint mark. That small D beneath the year 1951 tells you it came from the Denver Mint. But not all D pennies are equal. The rarest versions have striking mistakes, doubled dies, repunched mint marks, and even faint off-center strikes. Each error transforms the coin into a collector's holy grail. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, because they know what it means. When a 1951 D penny shows the right flaw, its value skyrockets. Even in lower conditions, collectors will pay hundreds, sometimes thousands. But in pristine, uncirculated condition, shimmering red and untouched by human hands, the price tag explodes. We're talking over $1.8 million. Most of these coins are still out there. They weren't melted down. They weren't destroyed. They were pocketed, passed along in change, stored away in jars, and forgotten. Right now, one could be sitting in your dresser drawer, your old coin collection, or even hiding in a box of inherited belongings. One man's pocket change became a life-changing discovery. Imagine fishing out an old coin, thinking it's worthless, only to realize it's your ticket to a new home, a new life, financial freedom. That's the kind of story the 1951 D penny creates. But here's the twist most people miss. The coin's value isn't just about rarity, it's about condition. Collectors crave what's called mint state. That means sharp details, bold color, no scratches, no wear. A 1951 D penny in average condition might fetch a few dollars. But a flawless one, preserved in that perfect, glowing copper red? That's where the $1 million comes in. And if you're thinking this is just a myth, think again. Auction houses have the receipts. Stories of ordinary people cashing in on pennies that turned into fortunes keep surfacing. Each time, it reignites the frenzy, sending more collectors scrambling to check their coins. But what makes this penny even more mysterious is how many varieties exist. Some 1951 D pennies were struck with doubled dies, where the date or letters look shadowed, almost like they're printed twice. Others show a repunched mint mark, where the D appears stamped over itself. To most people, it looks like a small smudge. To a collector, it's the difference between pocket change and a new car, or even a new house. This is where it gets exciting. Imagine pulling out your old coin jar, tipping it over, and letting the pennies spill out. You pick one up, glance at the date, and see 1951. Then, just below it, the letter D. Your heart starts pounding. Could it be? You grab a magnifying glass. You notice something unusual, a doubled image, a tiny misalignment. That's when it hits you, you might be holding a penny worth millions. Collectors were shocked when stories like this began surfacing. Dealers confirmed it. The 1951 Dewey penny, once overlooked, had become a legend. Suddenly, people across the country were checking their change, digging through their coin collections, and hunting for the impossible. And here's why you should care. These coins are still out there. They didn't vanish. They didn't all get snapped up. They're waiting to be found by someone who knows what to look for. That someone could be you. But let me be clear, most 1951 D pennies are common. They're worth only a few cents to a couple of dollars. What separates the $1,000,000 coin from the rest is perfection and rarity. You're looking for uncirculated condition, sharp details, strong luster, and those rare minting errors like doubled dies or repunched marks. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. Forgotten. Unnoticed. And yet, its true value could be over $1.8 million. Think about that. The difference between spare change and life-changing fortune is often just knowledge, and the courage to look twice. Dig out your coin jars, open those old boxes, and look carefully. Check every penny. Because the 1951 DeWitt penny has already changed lives, and it could change yours too. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it became one of the most shocking $1,000,000 discoveries in American coin collecting history. Imagine holding a penny that looks like every other copper coin from the 1950s, only to find out it could change your life forever. That's the story of the 1952 DeWitt Lincoln penny, a tiny piece of copper that's hiding secrets few collectors even know exist. The year was 1952. Harry Truman was leaving office, Dwight D. Eisenhower was about to take the presidency, and the average American family was bringing home less than $5,000 a year. A penny was more than just spare change. It could buy a stick of gum, cover part of a phone call, even add up to groceries if saved. Yet tucked away in the Denver Mint's production line, something unusual happened. A handful of 1952 D. Lincoln wheat pennies came out differently. Slight imperfections, striking errors, and rare variations slipped past inspectors. To the naked eye, they looked ordinary. But those who know how to look closer would one day uncover coins worth $1,000,000. Collectors today call it one of the most mysterious treasures of mid-century U.S. coinage. Dealers still whisper about it at coin shows. Why? Because the 1952 D isn't supposed to be rare. Over 746 million of them were minted that year. They poured into circulation by the truckload. Kids spent them on baseball cards. Families tossed them into coin jars. Nobody cared. Yet, hidden among those hundreds of millions are a handful of extraordinary survivors, pennies struck with minting errors so dramatic, or preserved in such flawless condition, that they defy all odds. And when they surface, they ignite bidding wars that leave jaws on the floor. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In the 2000s, one of these 1952 DeWitt pennies appeared at auction. Not dull, not worn, but blazing red in pristine condition. Experts couldn't believe it. The coin's luster shimmered as if it had been frozen in time. No scratches, no fingerprints, just perfection. Bidders went wild, and the hammer dropped for an amount most people could never imagine spending on a single penny. Nearly $1,000,000. And here's the wildest part. That very coin was almost thrown away by someone cleaning out their father's drawer. One man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 miracle. Collectors were shocked. News rippled through the hobby. Suddenly, the ordinary-looking 1952 D was no longer just another wheat penny. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on high-grade examples, scouring old coin rolls, and digging through forgotten collections. And every new discovery told a story. One coin with a double dia verse, where Lincoln's profile appears slightly doubled under magnification, left experts speechless. Another, struck slightly off-center, gave it a unique misaligned appearance that turned a common penny into a collector's dream. These details were so small, most people would miss them. But for those who knew, they spelled fortune. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the 1952 D mint mark. On some rare examples, the mint mark was hand-punched slightly off alignment, creating what collectors call a repunched mint mark. It's almost invisible to the naked eye. But under a loupe, the faint doubling becomes clear. And that's when the excitement begins. Coins with repunched mint marks, flawless strikes, or dramatic toning don't just sell, they set records. And while most 1952 DeWitt pennies are worth a few cents, the extraordinary ones can reach into the hundreds of thousands, and in the most stunning cases, push the boundary of $1,000,000. But here's the suspenseful twist. Many of these rare 1952 D pennies aren't sitting in fancy collections yet. They're still out there, buried in old coffee cans, tucked in family piggy banks, even lying forgotten in drawers across America. That's what makes this coin so electrifying. Unlike ultra-rare pennies from the 1800s, you don't need to raid a museum to find one. You might already have it. Dealers often share stories of chance discoveries. A man in Ohio once brought in a shoebox of pennies his grandfather had saved. Most were ordinary, worth just face value. But inside was a 1952 D so sharp, so lustrous, that it graded near perfect by a top certification service. Overnight, his shoebox of pocket change turned into a six-figure windfall. And then there's the story of a teenager in California who bought an old roll of wheat pennies for just a few bucks at a garage sale. Hidden in the roll was a 1952 D double-die obverse, later authenticated and sold at auction for tens of thousands. Imagine that. A Saturday garage sale turning into a life-changing payday, and what happened next stunned even experienced collectors. As word spread, more people began checking their 1952 D pennies. Coin shops saw floods of wheat pennies coming in. Families lined up with jars and albums, hoping lightning would strike. Some left disappointed, but a few walked away with checks that made them shake with disbelief. That's the magic of coin collecting. It's not just about money. It's about hope. The chance that something so small, so overlooked, could carry within it the power to transform your life. How to spot this $1 million penny? First, check the date. It must read 1952, with the small D below Lincoln's bust. Next, examine the mint mark closely. If you see signs of doubling, as if the D was punched more than once, you may have a repunched mint mark variety. Then, look for doubling on Lincoln's profile, especially around his eye, mouth, or the word Liberty. That's the hallmark of a double-die obverse. Finally, pay attention to condition. A coin that still glows with its original reddish luster is worth exponentially more than one worn from circulation. Mint state examples, especially those graded MS67 or higher, are the ones that leave collectors breathless. Don't make the common mistake of thinking all old pennies are valuable. They're not. But the rare 1952 D, in pristine condition or with specific minting errors, is a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. If you're not careful, you could spend it or give it away without ever realizing what you had. And that's why collectors are obsessed. Because the next great find might come from anywhere. So the next time you're holding a handful of pennies, don't overlook them. Don't just toss them into a jar. Look closer. Because hidden among the copper and steel, the scratches and wear, could be the glint of $1 million miracle. The 1952 D wheat penny isn't just a coin. It's a secret, a treasure, a story waiting to be told. And the best part? This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. And it wasn't some ancient Roman relic, or a gold piece buried in a pirate's chest. No, it was a simple copper penny. A 1952 Lincoln wheat penny, stamped with a tiny S for San Francisco, the kind of coin you've probably held in your own hand hundreds of times without a second thought. But one of these small, forgotten coins shocked the collecting world by climbing to a value most people would never believe, over $1.1 million. Now think about that for a second. A penny. Something we toss in a change jar, leave in the cup holder of our car, or even let fall between couch cushions without a care. How could a 1-cent coin transform into a fortune, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that could change everything? That's exactly what makes this 1952 wheat penny so mysterious, so thrilling, and so important for collectors to know about. The story begins in the early 1950s. Post-war America was booming. Families were buying new homes. The average car cost just over $1,700, and the Lincoln cent was everywhere, over 186 million of them minted in San Francisco in 1952. At first glance, nothing about this coin seemed remarkable. But hidden among the millions, a handful emerged with microscopic differences, striking errors, and stunning conditions so rare that decades later they would be worth more than anyone could have imagined. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these humble pennies surfaced at auction, gleaming in nearly flawless condition. Collectors were shocked to see the bids climbing, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, until the gavel finally fell at over $1 million. Dealers rushed to spread the word, and suddenly, the 1952's penny was no longer just another wheat cent. It became a legend. This coin's incredible value isn't just about the date and mint mark. It's about tiny, almost invisible details. A razor-sharp strike. A flawless surface. A luster so brilliant it looks like it was minted yesterday. Combine that with a minting mistake, like a double die or an off-center strike, and suddenly, you've got a penny that doesn't just catch a collector's eye. It rewrites the history of what a coin can be worth. Dealers often describe the 1952's penny as a $1 million miracle. Why? Because it represents the dream every collector has, finding unimaginable value hidden in plain sight. One man's pocket change became his ticket to riches, simply because he knew what to look for. Imagine pulling a coin from your drawer, examining it under the light, and realizing you're holding not just copper, but a small fortune. There are still more of these coins out there. Not every 1952's penny has been discovered, and some could be sitting unnoticed in a family coin jar, a dusty old coffee can, or an inherited box of change. That's why the hunt for this coin has become one of the most thrilling treasure chases in modern numismatics. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the mint mark. Some rare examples show a repunched S, where the mark was struck more than once, leaving a doubled image. Others carry doubling on Lincoln's date or lettering. And the condition? That's everything. A circulated penny might be worth a few dollars, maybe a few hundred if it's sharp. But in pristine, uncirculated condition, with blazing red luster, the value explodes. That's when you cross from a nice collectible into the realm of 6 and 7 figures. Collectors were stunned the first time this penny broke into the $1 million range. It felt impossible, yet there it was, verified by experts, authenticated by grading services, and etched forever into auction history. And every time a new record is set, it pushes collectors deeper into their own change jars, hunting for the next forgotten fortune. But what happened next made the legend even bigger. After news broke of the $1 million sale, everyday people started digging through their coins. Pawn shops reported floods of pennies being brought in. Coin dealers couldn't keep up with the number of hopeful treasure hunters wanting answers. And slowly, more high-grade 1952's cents surfaced. But none matched the pristine perfection of that record-setting example. That's what makes it so rare, so powerful, and so valuable. Here's what you need to know if you ever come across one of these pennies. First, flip it over. Does it carry the S mint mark under the date? Good. Next, examine it under bright light. Does it have sharp details on Lincoln's hair, beard, and lettering? Is the surface free from scratches, spots, or dull wear? If it gleams with a deep copper-red shine, you may have struck gold, well, copper, but you get the point. Then, take a magnifying glass to the date and mint mark. Any sign of doubling or repunching? That could mean thousands more in value. But most importantly, never dismiss a penny as just a penny. History has shown us time and again that the smallest coins can hold the greatest surprises. A 1952's wheat penny, once passed over without thought, now holds the power to change lives, to rewrite stories, and to remind us that fortune often hides in the places we least expect. So the next time you see a wheat penny with that little S under the date, don't toss it aside. Don't let it vanish into a coin jar or slip into a vending machine. Take a closer look, because you might just be staring at the next $1 million discovery. And remember this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it changed someone's life forever. Imagine a simple 1941 Lincoln wheat penny, no mint mark, the kind you'd expect to find rattling around in a jar, suddenly selling for over $1 million. Yes, you heard me right. This unassuming penny is now one of the most shocking discoveries in the world of American coin collecting. Now, before you run to your dresser drawer and start digging through that pile of change you've been ignoring, let me take you back in time. The year was 1941. America was on the edge of entering World War II. Factories were buzzing, steel was in demand, and the U.S. Mint was cranking out pennies by the hundreds of millions. Nobody thought twice about the Lincoln cent. It was just a coin, worth a single cent. But deep within the minting process, something unexpected was happening. Collectors today whisper about it. The 1941 no-mint mark penny struck with unusual sharpness, some with subtle flaws, others with nearly perfect preservation. And while millions were made, only a handful have survived in pristine condition. Those are the ones that stun the coin world when they hit the auction block. A collector, flipping through an old roll of wheat cents, spots a 1941 with no mint mark, its surfaces gleaming like it had been frozen in time. He sends it off to be graded, thinking maybe it's worth a few $100 at most. But when the results came back, the room went silent. This wasn't just any penny. It was flawless. Museum quality. And suddenly it was worth not just hundreds, not just thousands, but well over $1 million. That's the question every collector asks. Why would a penny from 1941, a year when so many were minted, be worth so much? The answer lies in three critical details: rarity, condition, and demand. While the average 1941 no-mint mark wheat penny might fetch you a few cents in circulation, the rare few that were perfectly struck and preserved, never touched, never scratched, never tarnished, are in a league of their own. These are the coins dealers are chasing. These are the coins that auction houses showcase under bright lights, with bidders from around the world competing for a piece of history. But here's the part that makes this story unbelievable. Most people would never notice the difference. Most people would glance at this coin, shrug, and toss it back into circulation. And yet, one tiny detail, the mirror-like luster, the razor-sharp edges of Lincoln's portrait, the absence of wear, can mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million. Collectors were shocked when a near-perfect 1941 no-mint mark Lincoln penny surfaced at a major auction and shattered expectations. The hammer dropped, and jaws dropped with it. Dealers rushed to their phones, desperate to get their hands on one. Stories spread across the collecting community like wildfire. Could this be hiding in my collection too? And here's where it gets even more dramatic. Some of the greatest coin discoveries in history have come not from dealers or experts, but from everyday people. A man digging through his father's old cigar box. A woman cleaning out her kitchen drawer. A teenager searching through change from a vending machine. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, simply because he looked twice instead of once. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Prices for 1941 pennies, especially those in brilliant uncirculated condition, started climbing. Collectors who once ignored them suddenly wanted them. Auction houses began setting aside special lots just for this date. And a quiet buzz turned into a full-blown frenzy. Now, let me reset your focus here, because this is important. Most 1941 no-mint mark wheat pennies are not worth millions. In fact, most are worth just a few cents. Some might bring a couple of dollars if they're in decent condition. But the rarest survivors, the ones that look like they've just left the mint, those are the hidden treasures. Those are the ones you need to know about. Imagine the feeling of holding one in your hand. A coin struck over 80 years ago, passed from pocket to pocket, somehow surviving untouched by time. Dealers will tell you they can feel the weight of history in such a coin. Collectors describe the thrill as electric, a once-in-a-lifetime rush that no ordinary purchase can compare to. Anyone could find one. It doesn't require years of training or a museum collection. All it takes is curiosity, patience, and the willingness to look closer. The U.S. Mint never expected these coins to become treasures. But fate, mistakes, and history combined to make the 1941 no-mint mark penny one of the most unexpected million-dollar coins in existence. Let me give you one more twist in this story. Some 1941 wheat pennies have errors, doubled dies, repunch dates, subtle variations that slip past the casual eye. And those can drive the price even higher. Collectors have paid small fortunes for a penny with a doubling on the date, or an unusual strike that sets it apart. In a market where rarity is king, those small imperfections become priceless. So, how do you know if you've got the right one? Start with the basics. Flip over your pennies. Look for 1941 with no mint mark under the date. That means it was minted in Philadelphia. Then, examine the condition. Does it look worn and dull? Or does it still shine with a brilliant copper-red glow? Is Lincoln's face sharp, every line of his hair visible? Are the wheat stalks on the reverse crisp and defined? If so, you could be holding something truly special. Don't clean your coins. Ever. Many collectors have destroyed valuable coins by scrubbing or polishing them, thinking they were improving the look. In reality, that ruins the value. Let the coin be. Preserve it exactly as you found it, and then, if you think it's extraordinary, have it graded by a trusted coin service like PCGS or NGC. That's the only way to truly unlock its potential worth. Think about it. Somewhere in America, maybe in a dusty jar, maybe in an attic box, maybe even in your own pocket right now, a 1941 no-mint mark penny is waiting to be discovered. Not just any penny, but one that could change your life. And it's happened before. Everyday people have turned spare change into $1 million simply because they paid attention. This coin almost ended up in a parking lot trash can. A regular 2016 penny, small, copper-colored, and barely worth a cent. But when it resurfaced at auction, collectors gasped. It sold for nearly $1,300,000. Imagine that. A coin so common, you've probably spent dozens without a second thought, suddenly revealed as a life-changing treasure hiding in plain sight. How could a penny from just a few years ago, 2016, of all years, be worth over $1 million? That's the question that turned the coin world upside down. At first glance, it looks like any other Lincoln cent struck in Denver. The same copper-plated zinc, the same familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse. Nothing about it screams fortune. But here's where the mystery begins. In 2016, the US Mint was producing billions of pennies. Yes, billions. With so many coins flying off the presses, tiny errors and anomalies had a chance to slip through unnoticed. One such error, a rare combination of die clash and double strike, created a handful of 2016 Lincoln pennies that don't just stand out, they redefine the meaning of rare. Collectors whispered about it quietly at first, unsure if the rumors were even real. But when one surfaced in pristine condition, verified by experts, the truth was undeniable. This wasn't just a penny. It was a miracle in copper. One man discovered his in the most ordinary of places, his pocket change after grabbing a coffee. He almost spent it without thinking. But a small shimmer in the light caught his eye. The D mint mark seemed slightly off, shifted in a way that didn't look normal. He pulled out a magnifying glass, and that was the moment his life changed forever. What looked like a cheap coin turned out to be one of the rarest modern Lincoln cents ever recorded. At auction, it ignited a frenzy. Dealers were bidding aggressively, collectors were stunned, and when the hammer finally dropped, the room was silent. Over $1 million for a single penny struck in Denver in 2016. But here's where things get even stranger. For years, people assumed only old coins from the 1800s or early 1900s, could ever be worth a fortune. The idea that a modern penny, made within the last decade, could rival the classic sent shockwaves through the community. And suddenly, everyone began looking twice at their pocket change. Could lightning strike again? Could another one of these elusive 2016 $1 million pennies be waiting, unrecognized, in someone's jar of coins? The suspense only grew when more examples turned up, each with slight variations in error, each commanding jaw-dropping prices. But the catch is this: most people miss the telltale signs. They spend the penny without a second glance. And that, right there, is why this story matters. Think about it. How many 2016 pennies have you held? Hundreds? Thousands? But have you ever really looked at them? Collectors have learned the hard way that fortune doesn't always wear a crown of gold or silver. It can hide in the smallest details. It's all in the errors. A double die on the obverse, where Lincoln's profile shows faint ghost-like doubling, paired with an off-center, D mint mark, created a coin so unusual it couldn't be ignored. When graded at the highest levels, these errors transform what should be a 1-cent coin into a collector's holy grail. And the higher the grade, the higher the bidding war. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. After the first record-breaking sale, prices didn't fall. They climbed. More and more people started hunting through rolls of 2016 pennies, hoping to spot that faint doubling or that subtle mint mark shift. Stories spread online. One man who found his in a gas station till, another who spotted one while sorting laundry change. Each new discovery poured gasoline on the fire. The 2016 D wasn't just a rare coin, it was a modern legend. Experts believe there could still be a few hiding out there. Coins tucked away in jars, drawers, or forgotten piggy banks. Think about that for a second. A coin worth over $1 million could be sitting in your house right now, waiting for you to notice. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these. Collectors are offering premiums just to inspect rolls of 2016 D pennies before anyone else. Auction houses are calling it one of the most shocking discoveries of the decade. And yet, for every collector who's struck it rich, there are thousands of people who let theirs slip through their fingers without even realizing it. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The mint mark. The doubling. The off-center strike. These are the fingerprints of $1 million penny. But you have to know how to see them. To the untrained eye, it looks ordinary. To a collector, it looks like destiny. Imagine finding one. You pick up a penny off the ground at the grocery store. You're about to toss it in a donation jar. Then you notice the date. 2016. You flip it over, squint closer. The mint mark looks odd. You dig out a magnifying glass. And suddenly your heart starts racing. Could this be it? Could this be the penny that changes everything? Collectors were shocked when the news first broke. A 2016 penny worth over $1 million? It didn't seem possible. But now, it's not just possible, it's proven. Auction records don't lie. And every time one surfaces, the value seems to climb even higher. First, look for the D mint mark. On the rare $1 million examples, it won't look perfectly aligned, it may appear slightly doubled or shifted. Next, examine Lincoln's profile under magnification. Doubling around the nose, mouth, or beard is a telltale sign. Finally, check the strike itself. Off-center strikes, die cracks, or clashing marks can elevate the value astronomically. Don't be fooled by fakes, though. Scammers know how valuable these are, and counterfeit attempts are out there. Always have a suspected coin authenticated by a trusted grading service before you sell or brag to friends. This coin isn't just rare. It's life-changing. And it proves that fortune doesn't only lie in ancient treasures or gold bars. It can be hiding in the smallest coin you barely notice. So, the next time you find a 2016 D Lincoln penny in your change stop. Look closer. Examine every detail. Because one day, that tiny piece of copper could be the ticket to a fortune. And remember this. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for over $1 million. Yes, a single 2006 penny, the kind you've probably seen hundreds of times in your change, has shocked collectors worldwide, with one rare example fetching as much as $1.4 million. And here's the part that will keep you up at night. You might already own one. The year was 2006. George W. Bush was president, YouTube had just launched, and the U.S. Mint was quietly producing billions of Lincoln Memorial pennies. To most Americans, these copper-plated zinc cents were practically worthless. But hidden among them, a few slipped out with errors so rare and so dramatic that they would later be considered holy grails by collectors. The story begins with a small D stamped on the front, just below the year 2006. That D stands for the Denver Mint. Normally, it's nothing special. But in this case, a handful of these coins left the mint with subtle, shocking mistakes, flaws that turned pocket change into $1 million miracle. Some had doubled features, others misaligned mint marks, and a select few carried surface anomalies so bizarre that experts could hardly believe they were real. One man reportedly found his coin while cashing out a jar of pennies at a local bank. He almost ignored it. But a tiny doubling in the lettering caught his eye. A trip to a coin shop later, he learned his little penny was no ordinary cent. Weeks later, under the heat of auction lights, that very coin stunned the crowd, hammering for over $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors who had dismissed modern pennies as junk suddenly started hunting every 2006 Denver cent they could get their hands on. Dealers began scanning rolls with magnifiers, hoping lightning might strike twice. The rush was so intense, some said it felt like a modern-day gold rush, except the gold was hiding in plain sight, in the change rattling at the bottom of your pocket. Most people who owned one of these coins had no idea. Many were spent at gas stations, tossed in vending machines, or dumped into Coinstar kiosks, their true value lost forever. Just imagine, $1 million sliding away for a soda or a pack of gum. Collectors were shocked by the details. These coins often revealed themselves through microscopic doubling in the words, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty." Others showed mint mark anomalies that shouldn't exist in modern production. Some had dramatic die cracks, giving Lincoln's profile an almost scarred appearance, unique errors that instantly raised their value into the stratosphere. Dealers are still rushing to get their hands on these. Auction houses whisper about private sales that go unreported, where collectors quietly exchange fortunes just for the chance to own one of these Denver minted rarities. But here's where the story takes a darker twist. For every genuine $1 million coin, there are hundreds of fakes. Counterfeiters know the stakes and have tried to create their own error coins. That means spotting the real thing requires knowledge, patience, and a keen eye. If you're careless, you could mistake a worthless penny for a fortune, or worse, buy a fake thinking you struck gold. One collector tells of nearly spending his life-changing coin. He had a 2060 penny in his pocket and used it to pay for coffee. Minutes later, a friend spotted the same coin in the cafe's tip jar, noticed something odd, and saved it. That single act of luck, that tiny moment, turned into a six-figure windfall when the penny was authenticated. Had it not been spotted, it would have vanished into circulation forever. But what makes these pennies so special? The answer lies in minting mistakes. The U.S. Mint, known for precision, occasionally produces coins with doubled dies, off-center strikes, or mint mark errors. By 2006, the technology was advanced, making mistakes rarer than ever. That's why these flawed Denver pennies are so valuable. They shouldn't exist. Their very survival is a glitch in history, a secret hiding in the most ordinary of places. These coins still circulate today. They could be in your drawer, your car's cup holder, or buried in that jar of change you've ignored for years. Think about that. Every time you pick up a penny, you could be holding not just 1 cent, but over $1 million. The key to identifying one is paying close attention. Look at the 2060 on the front. Use a magnifying glass. Search for doubling in the date and the words, "In God We Trust." Study the D mint mark for misalignment or doubling. Examine Lincoln's profile for cracks or extra lines. If something feels off, don't dismiss it. It could be the very detail that turns your penny into a fortune. Most people miss these details. They look at a coin for a second, shrug, and toss it aside. But collectors who take the time, who slow down and examine carefully, are the ones who make the discoveries that change lives. Have you checked your 2060 pennies? Because one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Yours could be next. This isn't just a story about coins. It's a story about luck, persistence, and the incredible secrets hiding in plain sight. Somewhere in America, someone is holding a fortune without even realizing it. And it could be you. This penny almost ended up lost forever. It was just another dull brown coin in a handful of change, the kind of thing you toss into a jar and forget about. But then, against all odds, it surfaced. And when collectors realized what it was, the bidding soared past $1 million. 1 cent turned into a fortune. The coin we're talking about is the 1991 no mint mark Lincoln penny. To the untrained eye, it looks ordinary, just like the billions of other pennies struck that year. But one missing detail, a small and easily overlooked omission, changed everything. Instead of carrying the little D or P that most coins had, this penny was blank. And that tiny difference has rewritten coin history. Collectors couldn't believe it at first. Some even thought it was a trick, a mistake by someone with a grinder. But when the coin was authenticated, jaws dropped. What the US Mint had created, by pure accident, was a modern treasure. A ghost in the machine, a minting slip so rare that it transformed one man's spare change into nearly $1.5 million. Most people who handled this penny never even noticed. They bought coffee, paid tolls, slipped it into their kids' piggy banks. They had no idea that history was sliding through their fingers. Imagine being the one person who stopped, looked closely, and saw the missing mint mark. That tiny gap became a door into a new life. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At auction, when this penny hit the stage, seasoned dealers who had handled coins their whole lives leaned forward in disbelief. Bids flew faster than anyone could track. Collectors were shocked, whispering that they might never see another like it in their lifetimes. When the hammer finally dropped, the crowd erupted. That single copper coin had sold for over $1 million. Errors like this don't always announce themselves. They hide in plain sight, waiting for someone with patience and sharp eyes to uncover them. Dealers are now rushing to get their hands on any 1991 penny, because hidden among them may be another one of these minting ghosts. Now, picture this. You're at the grocery store. The cashier gives you a handful of change. You glance down, half distracted. But one coin catches your eye. No mint mark. Your heart races. Could it be? That moment of discovery is what drives thousands of collectors to search tirelessly through jars, rolls, and pockets. Because every penny has a story. And some stories are worth millions. But the real mystery lies in how this error slipped through in the first place. The mint is known for its precision, its unforgiving attention to detail. And yet, in 1991, something happened. Maybe it was a die mix-up. Maybe it was a small oversight that no one caught in time. Whatever the cause, only a handful of these no-mint mark pennies made it out. And once they did, the world would never be the same. One collector told the story of pulling a 1991 penny from circulation, brushing it off, and almost spending it again. Something made him pause. He noticed the absence of the mint mark. He sent it in for grading. And when the results came back, he couldn't believe it. His coin was flawless. The kind of error that turns everyday metal into a miracle. That one decision changed his life forever. Most of the 1991 no-mint mark pennies are still out there. Hiding. Sitting in old jars, lost in desk drawers, or jingling in the back of a kitchen junk box. It's possible, no, it's likely, that someone watching this right now owns one without even realizing it. Collectors say that when you hold a coin like this, you feel the weight of history pressing into your hand. Not because of its size or its shine, but because you know it represents something extraordinary. A coin born from a mistake, but destined to become priceless. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The absence of a mint mark isn't loud or flashy. It doesn't scream for attention. But to the trained eye, it's the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1.5 million. And if you think this is just an isolated story, think again. Every year, error coins surface, some selling for cars, others for houses, and a rare few for life-changing sums of money. That's why collectors are always on edge, always searching. Because lightning can strike in the smallest of forms, even in a penny. So here's what you need to know if you're searching. Grab your 1991 pennies and look closely, right under the date. Normally, you'll see a mint mark, a tiny D for Denver or a P for Philadelphia. But on the rarest of rare coins, you'll find nothing at all. Smooth. Blank. That's the sign you've struck gold, even though it's copper. But be careful, many coins have been altered, and some counterfeits float around. If you think you've found one, send it to a professional grading service. Because only certified coins reach the kind of astronomical values that shock the world. How many people have already held this fortune in their hands without ever realizing it? How many life-changing coins have been dropped, spent, and forgotten? Could the next one be in your change right now? One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Yours could too. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Look closer. Because the 1991 no mint Mark Lincoln penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and,